the jungle.
Okay, rolling.
Hello, welcome to The Jungle. I'm your host, Natalie Locke. Our guest on today's show has had a 23-year career working as a breakfast radio host on one of Australia's biggest radio networks. Not only that, she is also a stand-up comedian and a columnist for the Sunday Times. In this conversation, we cover communication, where she gets her energy from, imposter syndrome, productivity, and so much more. Welcome to The Jungle, Nat Locke.
Welcome to the jungle with Natalie Locke.
Nat Locke, welcome to The Jungle.
Thank you.
You do not know how excited I am. So we met at a West Coast Fever game.
Yeah, that's right.
But I feel like I've known you for a lifetime because I'm like one of those fangirls who's had you in my ear for the longest time.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, I have like the fondest memories of like my sister introduced me to Nova because I think I must have been in year 7 when you guys launched. And
this makes me feel very old. Thank you.
I know, sorry. Can we start again? No, but honestly, on behalf of my sister and myself, I'm like so excited for this. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Well, obviously you're doing all these amazing things now, but your origin story into the media industry is so wild.
I know, it really is. When I reflect upon it, I'm like, I don't think it would happen this way now. Like it's just so random.
I feel like you took the most roundabout route to get to where you got.
I think that is a fair statement, to be honest. So, because I was a chiropractor, you know, and I knew that I wanted to be a chiro from when I was like 14. And so, you know, I my high school education was sort of geared towards that. I did all the right subjects to get into that course, got into that course, moved to Melbourne to do it. You know, it was a big driving force in my life at the time. And then after doing that for a while, I mean, more than 10 years, I just kind of fell into the entertainment industry by accident. It's like I still sometimes I think, is this just been a fever dream?
No, actually you are. You are in a dream.
Oh, thank God, somebody's finally told me.
No, well,
I know, it's wild. So, and that the catalyst for me, hilariously, was going on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Like that is just...
Well, I want to get to that, but I thought it'd be cool to kind of wind right back to the beginning because you actually grew up in Esperance.
I did, on a farm out of Esperance actually, so 40 k's out of Esperance. If you've been to Esperance, you would have been out to Lucky Bay. We live on that road to Lucky Bay, so that national park is our next door neighbour. And my parents and brother are still down there, so it's a gorgeous part of the world to grow up in.
Yeah, what were you like as a kid?
A bit of a tomboy because I had 2 older brothers and you kind of had to be just to keep up. And when you grow up on a farm, you're isolated. Like you don't have kids down the street or anything like that. Like you're stuck with them the whole time basically. Wow. So, you know, I could play cricket, I could kick a footy, I could do all of that stuff because, you know, that's what we did. And I was mad about horses, like really like a full...
Oh, really? I've always been suspicious of horse people.
Yeah, no, rightly so, I would say. Like all the books I read were about like weird English novels about girls that went to boarding schools where they could take their horses and all this.
Oh, was Saddle Club before your time?
Did
you grow up? Okay,
yes,
I grew up with Saddle Club.
Yeah, I'm probably a bit before Saddle Club. But yes, I would have been, I would have been right into it. So that's the sort of thing that I was into.
I'm getting the picture. What you're leaving out, I was going to say, is that you're also a gigantic nerd.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, nerd in the sense that I was also pretty competent at sport. So if you can offset nerdism, if you're a little bit sporty.
Oh yeah, then you're like
rules for life. If you do want to offset your nerdism, step away from the chessboard and like just go and play netball or something. Because I was quite good at that kind of thing as well. But yeah, I got into a gifted and talented program, which is not the traditional way to be known as cool.
No, this is what...
And thus I was not.
Well, so you got into gifted and talented program at Mount Lawley High in Perth. So you came down for that. What were your specific gifts and talents? Was it sport?
No, it wasn't. No, so academic. So it's an academic
you
thing.
Were smart.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, I know, right?
Were you a drama student?
No, I never did. No, I mean, other than sort of the regular drama that you did within your English thing, I didn't do drama. Wasn't in a school play. Didn't do any sort of entertainment.
That's wild. Were you like, obviously we know you for your like comedy now and being like hilarious. Do you no, you do you look back at you as a kid and were you like the funny kid in school?
I think I wasn't the class clown, but I think my friends would say that I was funny. Like I would have, been cracking jokes a lot with my friends, but I wasn't the one acting out in class to be funny kind of thing. But I don't think people would be surprised that I'm funny, but I think they probably would be, people I went to school would be surprised that I've done what I've done.
Oh yeah, because were you saying at age 15ish you knew that you wanted to be a chiro? So that was on the vision board.
Yeah, that's right. That's where I was headed, and I knew it. Yeah.
You knew it, and so then after school you moved to Melbourne, went to RMIT, studied chiro, came back. Yeah. Got a job working at a little chiro in Fremantle.
Yeah,
How did you find that? Did you love it?
So I did. I loved it. And I was working for an amazing woman and, so we had to do this element of field work, which is like an internship, I suppose. So you had to rack up so many weeks. And she was one of my placements. And she was amazing. We got on really well. She was really lovely. And then not long after that, so I started working for her. And then literally within a couple of months, she was a Kiwi and her dad got sick and she's like, I think I want to move back to New Zealand and do you want to buy the practice? And I'm like, what? And so I did. And it wasn't something that I ever thought that I was going to do. It wasn't my plan. I thought I'd work for her for a couple of years and then travel overseas probably because that's what a lot of my friends did.
Because you're doing young.
Yeah. Mid-20s,
Wow, okay.
Yeah. No idea what I was doing.
That's what
Never run a business, clueless. Clueless.
So you weren't a natural businesswoman?
No, still not. That hasn't improved.
Yeah, running a business is like not for everyone. What was your biggest takeaway of business life?
That I didn't like it. I loved being a chiro. I loved that. I loved being able to help my patients. I loved that, that I would see little kids grow up and see, it was beautiful being a part of these people's lives and helping them. There are babies that would come in who were screaming all night and the mum would come back a couple of visits later and said, you've changed my life because this baby now sleeps, or, things like that. A little girl that I still remember who now is an adult, but I remember when she was about this high and she had a chronic bedwetting problem. We fixed it straight away. And I think that, like, to being able to do that, monumental in her life. Yeah. Not a big difference in my life, huge difference in her life. She could go on school camps and that kind of thing. It just changed her outlook. And being a part of that kind of thing is incredible, right? But running a business.
Oh, yeah.
Tax, gross, BAS statements, revolting.
People management.
I just can't, yeah, exactly. And so I inherited an amazing receptionist, but then she resigned not long after. And it's like, which I don't know is whether it was because of me or if it's just the time.
It's actually,
I
called her up and she was like, I was after some content for the show.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this is like the opposite of This Is Your Life. Here's a whole heap of people who hate you. But I think she did subsequently, like many years later, call me and say, if you've got any work coming. So she did come back to me.
Okay.
But at the time it was like, oh, now what do I do? So it was a very steep learning curve. And just that whole, I don't know, like having to write business plans and reporting to the bank and.
Did it almost like take the fun out of?
100%. Yeah. It's just like I'm one of those people that will just push that sort of thing to the back burner. Turns out you can't do that for very long.
No. I think it's as well, so many people, there's like this lure of like that's progression being like, oh yeah, and then you own it. That's what you want. That's what you want. But not necessarily. No. You've got to want those problems.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There's a downside to that. The upside is that, you're the boss. Yeah. There's freedom that comes with that, but also massive responsibility. Like for years, I didn't take any holidays, basically. I would take the bare minimum, like a long weekend here or there. I didn't take a long stretch of a holiday for maybe 5 years.
Oh my God, I was literally just having this conversation off camera with Lewis saying that had a holiday. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know. Because if you're on holidays, you're not getting paid.
Oh yeah. You can go on a holiday and also be broke.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
No one else is answering your emails.
Correct. That's right. That's right. The money, if you're not doing the work, the money's not coming in. So, that sort of thing weighed heavily on me as well. Because it turns out, I found out since working at Nova where you do get holiday pay, I really like holidays.
Yeah, oh my God. I can't even imagine what they would be like.
Let me tell you, like, marvellous. They're truly marvellous.
Thanks. So, business down the track for you would not be an option running your own
I
business again?
if I would do it differently, I think if I did, it's not something that I greatly aspire to. I think that what my hesitancy when I was younger too was that I figured I should do everything myself.
Yeah.
Now I think I would just outsource everything. I would do the bookkeeping and things like that, and turns out it's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Get somebody else to do that.
Well, as you were saying a little bit earlier, it was while you were doing this, chiro, living your dream, that you got the opportunity to go on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Now, this is what took your life in a whole different trajectory.
And I had no idea that would happen at the time. That wasn't the objective of it. I just thought it'd be funny to go on it, right?
Yeah.
And back then you had to register on a phone line basically. So you dialed a phone number and then you left your phone number on this line. And then if they picked out 100 people each week off that register, and they would ring them and ask them 8 questions, and then they would take the top 10 basically and fly them to Melbourne to do the show. And the first time that happened, I didn't make it through, and I'm like, oh, this is so annoying. And so so I just, whenever I had a spare half hour or whatever, I'd just get on and I don't know how big the phone bill was, I can't remember, but it was a good investment as it turned out. And then the second time, so they called me. And I missed their call, so I called them back and they asked me the 8 questions. And I think there were 7 questions, either 8 questions and then a question at the end where you had to kind of make an educated guess of a number that would be the closest to the answer. So that's how that was the tiebreaker.
And they were
question.
like general knowledge questions.
General knowledge questions. Okay. So I know I got all the questions right. And then the number question was something like, to the nearest million, what was the population of Earth the year 1000, right? And I'm like, I don't know. And so I just guessed 150 million. And the girls, then she sort of, you could tell she went, oh, okay. And I went, oh, because I didn't know what the answer was. I don't know what that was. She said, oh, we'll call you back if you're one of the top 10. And they called back the next day. And then I was reading, then I'm like, oh, I've got like 3 days to study general knowledge.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone
what do you even do that?
Show.
And I found a book that had a little table in it that had that exact thing. And I'm like, oh, I found the book that they get all their questions from. But no, it turns out they do spread that out a little bit. The answer was 175. So with 150, I was pretty close.
I would have guessed that there weren't many people.
Yeah.
I would have gone in like a couple of thousand.
Yeah, I know. Okay. It's amazing.
You were really smart. You are gifted and talented.
And only that one thing.
That doesn't get you anywhere in life.
No, that's right.
So you got onto the show as a contestant. You go to Melbourne. You've studied your butt off on just
general knowledge. Reading like facts and figures books.
So random. So much easier had it been now. You could have just, Googled stuff.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. I know. So this was this is 2001. And that week it was in September 2001. And that was the week after September 11 happened. And Ansett, the Australian airline, collapsed that week.
Oh, whoa.
And so then they're like, oh, we're not sure if we can get you here because there are no flights, right? Because a whole sector, there was no Virgin.
Yeah.
There was only Qantas. So all of a sudden, everybody who was trying to fly to Melbourne that week was trying to get onto these Qantas flights. And they got me on a flight that was like a red eye that would have got me to Melbourne like in the morning, no sleep, and then filming all day. And I'm just like, oh, that's not fair. This is my one chance.
To be a millionaire.
And so they said, we have bought your full fare. So just go to the airport and try and get on an earlier flight. And so literally that's what I did. I stood there at the counter and said, look, I have to go to Melbourne for this. Can you get me on an earlier flight? And they did. It was miraculous. Yeah. I still don't know how it happened. It was just meant to be. Yeah. So, it was wild.
And so then you get on this show.
Yes.
And you're competing away. And during the show, you start cracking some jokes.
Well, yes. I mean, I just was being me, right? Yeah. I wasn't purposely trying to crack. But I made some, I can't remember what the line was. And Eddie McGuire said, oh, you're the chiro who cracks jokes as well as backs, right? And I've just gone, Eddie. Oh, that's a good one, Eddie, like this. And he'd like look on his face like, because I've just served it back to him. And like I didn't think anything of it. That was just me being a smart ass, right? And then a friend of mine was watching and she just said to me, and she was studying musical theatre at Whopper, and she said, you should do stand-up. Yeah. And I'm like, it wasn't on my radar. I hadn't considered it. And I'm like, oh. And then I saw her another couple of times and she said, no, you should do it. You should do it. You should do it. And in the end, I just went, okay, I'll do it just to shut her up.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. So you left the show, unfortunately not a millionaire.
No, I won 16,000.
Oh my God, that's still all right.
I mean, it's all right.
That's all right. I would take that. But, well, you won 16,000 and you've got this new glimpse into the world of comedy.
Yeah.
And sort of off the back of your friends' feedback, next minute you've entered yourself into raw comedy.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, so as background for listeners, raw comedy is like this annual stand-up comedy competition. It's run around Australia. It's for emerging comedians,
that's right.
like fresh comedians, and they have like little heats in every major city and then a big final in Melbourne.
The Melbourne Comedy Festival in front of 12 at the town hall in front of 1,200 people, and they were filming it.
I know,
crazy.
So you've gone and cracked a few jokes on TV and then been like, I've got this, and you've entered. Like, what were you thinking?
Well, so when I entered, I didn't tell anybody at first, and then on the day that it was happening, I'm like, this was my heat. I thought I better tell one person, so I told one of my mates, and she came with me, and you go backstage and they draw lots to see the order that you're performing in, and I draw at my number. It's like number 1, and I'm like, oh no. Oh,
you're the person that's going to be so shit that everyone else is going to go.
Excruciating. And so, but it was okay. Like, and raw comedy is a very nurturing environment, really. Like, people are there, they want you to do well, and so it's unlike any other comedy audience because they're there. They get it. They get that. If you're even remotely funny, they're just that grateful.
Yeah.
So, I got a few laughs and everything. It was great. And at the end of it,
But wait, just to go back, you had never done comedy at this point.
No. And I don't think I'd spoken into a microphone either. Like, definitely, I didn't know how to operate a mic stand.
Oh, no.
And so I begged the guy who was the MC I said, can you adjust the mic stand for me? Like, that was my one point of like real anxiety, like that I was going to get there and not be able to, and it would be too high or too low, and I'm like bending right down.
I love that your one point of anxiety was not bombing out. It was like the mic.
It was the mic stand. That's what I fixated on.
My jokes are great.
I know, but no one can hear them. And then the other thing that really hit me when I was up there, so it was held, they used to have a comedy room at the Hyde Park Hotel, so that was where it was held. It's quite a big room, and the spotlight was crazy bright. Like, I had no idea. I'd never been in that sort of light before, and it made me cry. So my eye, whilst I'm trying to be funny, I have one single tear just like dripping down my cheek, and it's like, that's tough. I just made a gag about it, but like, that's grim. Like, first of all, I'm like, can I ignore this? No, I can't. I'm going to have to acknowledge it. It was,
Well, like, you ended up doing well, but like, what I was going to ask is, why did you enter it? Was it like that you thought you could potentially do well, or was it just more just like,
it was to give it a crack.
Just to give it a crack.
Yeah, and that way, and if it didn't work, then I could go back to her and say,
I tried.
Tried.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Not for me. So that it was really just to shut her up, and just to give it a burl. But I had no expectations.
Okay, no expectations. Well, you did well, and you actually got through to Melbourne to the finals.
Yes, to the national final. Yeah,
which it was televised.
It wasn't. They filmed it, and then they packaged it up and showed it on TV later. Yeah,
was that a whole daunting
experience? It was
experience?
crazy. And the other thing that they made us do was a rehearsal, and I'm like, now it feels like I'm telling all my jokes twice, because that's not something I'd ever done before. No. Comedians do it all the time. Obviously, you're not doing new material every time. But I was sort of a bit disappointed. I'm like, everybody will have heard my jokes. It's like, no, there's 1,200 people who haven't heard them. You know, it was wild.
Did you have any fear at all about people not laughing?
It didn't occur to me to worry about that at the time. But then there were a couple of people who really bombed, and my heart did break for them, like, where there's just like that, you can hear people blinking like when they've delivered. And one of the guys, he said that because he came from Darwin, and he said when he did his thing in Darwin, he absolutely, the place was like, blew the roof off. And so then he got there and nothing he said was funny. And it's just like, my heart broke for him a little bit. And so, but yeah, I mean, some hit, some didn't. But you just go, it's all part of it.
Do you remember how you actually, like, because if I had to write, is it called a bit? Is that what they call them in comedy?
A set. Yeah.
I would probably like go on YouTube and try and like watch a bunch of comedians and work out how did you work out how to do it? you're just like, oh, this is a funny line.
Yeah, pretty much. I just thought I'd just like throw
Put a few
together a
things
few little
together.
things. I don't even know where I got, like the only comedy I'd really seen would have been on TV, like people like Billy Connolly maybe.
yeah.
I don't know that I'd watched whole lot of stand-up.
Wow, that's
So yeah,
so
and maybe,
wild.
but I think that's probably an advantage because you're not modelling yourself after anyone in particular. I can't do a Scottish accent, so I couldn't
Yeah.
model myself after Billy Connolly.
So you really just did your own thing.
Yeah, it really just went in. Yeah.
And what was your big takeaway from that whole comedy environment? Did you like it?
Yeah, I did. When you do get a whole room full of people to spontaneously laugh in unison, it's a real vibe. It is a massive buzz.
Yeah.
Like it's quite extraordinary. There's nothing quite like it.
Oh, I can
yeah,
imagine.
you do get that real rush from it. And the feeling afterwards when you come off, and it's like you just feel like up here. Like it's amazing how, sort of the high that you get from it. Yeah.
Stop the podcast. I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor of the show and friend of the show, American Apparel. American Apparel are back. Their clothes are ethically sourced, super comfortable and sustainable. So what are you waiting for? Visit americanapparel.com.au. On with the show. Well, so you're runner-up, am I right?
Runner-up in WA.
Runner-up in WA and in Melbourne.
Yeah. Nah, well, I wasn't in the top 5,
Okay.
but I also don't think I was in the bottom 5.
Okay, so somewhere in the middle.
I'm going to say right smack bang in the middle 5.
Smack back in the middle, but had a great time.
Yes.
And so then you come back to Perth, you start dabbling in a little bit more
Yes.
comedy, stand-up comedy. And then around this time, it's 2002, Nova is this new radio station that's about to launch. And they sort of put an ad out in the paper saying that they need to fill every role. And you're sort of like, all right.
I'm going, why not? Like at this point, I was very much like, I'll just throw my hat in. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, cause that's what the comedy felt like I was doing. That's what it felt like
With
the quiz
business.
show felt
Yeah.
like I was doing. Just like, why
Have a
not
go.
have a crack, right? And so I sent off what I thought it was a particularly witty letter, application kind of resume.
Oh, so is
kind
that
of
how
thing.
you applied for it with
Yeah,
a letter?
they wanted written. Yeah,
Like a comedy letter? Or
well,
like a resume?
they just said right here kind of thing. And so,
Okay.
yeah, I guess it was up to however you interpreted that. And then I got a letter back saying, thanks for your interest. We'll let you know if you've been shortlisted, which is the polite way of saying, no, thank you.
No, thank you.
And so I'm like, okay, well, I'll just go back to being a caro then. And then another comedian that I had been working with, the guy that fixed the mic stand for me, he did get an interview with Gary Roberts, who was the founding GM of Nova. And Gary asked him if there was anybody else in Perth he thought that they should look at, because they were looking, they'd been around the country actually, already auditioned a lot of people in Melbourne and Sydney, and they'd nearly hired somebody, I found out later, and he mentioned me and a couple of other guys, and so I get this call saying, do you want to come in for an audition? And I'm like, oh, well, I've never been to an audition before, this will be a bit of fun. Literally just went for the experience of going to an audition. And I was told that I would be auditioning with one of the other guys, and they'd already hired an anchor, so they were like, it'll be like a 3-hander, and you just prepare 3 stories that you can tell, and we'll see how you go, right? And so I get there, and then they're like, oh, we want you to audition with the other 2 guys as well, separately. So that meant I needed 3 times the amount of material, which I did not have. So by the end of it, I was just winging it. It was just like, I was just pulling stories from anywhere. And the other thing they did during that, so we basically did as though we were doing a half-hour radio show. So they would play songs and everything as well, but they left the mics on to listen how we interacted and what the chemistry was like in between. Yeah. And then literally that would have been 1 week. At the end of that week, I had to go to Melbourne for a friend's wedding, and while I was there, I got a call saying, oh, can you come in again? And I'm like, oh, I'm in Melbourne. Yeah. And they're like, when do you get back? Like, when do you get back? This is the beginning of November. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm back lunchtime Monday. Can you come straight in? I'm like, okay. And then I had another, for a chat. Can you come in for a chat? And that chat was an hour-long video conference with a guy in Sydney as well. And then at the end of that, he just said, righto, well, we want you to audition tomorrow again with what we think's the final lineup. And I'm like, what? Are you serious? Like, are you serious? And so, yeah, that's what we did. And then they're like, okay, here's his contract if you're keen.
Wow.
I'm sure it's supposed to be harder than this. Like, it was mind-blowing the situation. But they took a massive punt, basically. So I'm very grateful that they were game enough to take a gamble on somebody with I'd never been in a radio station. Nothing. Never been in one.
I know, and like, because I have such a similar start with TV. I applied for a job with the ABC, and they had put an ad out saying that they needed new TV hosts. And so I submitted my thing, a bit like you, no experience. Never at all thinking I would get it. And I remember when they told me, similar reaction, I was like so surprised. Yes. And I remember they came to our house to do this surprise and tell us that like you had won the competition. And I remember my mum coming up to me being like, we think they've made a mistake, but just go with it.
Just go with it.
What was
thanks, Mum.
Thanks
for the vote of confidence.
But like, what was your reaction? What was your friend's reaction when you found out?
Oh, well, I couldn't tell anybody for a couple of weeks because it was going to be announced, like they were going to, with a press release kind of thing. So even then I got invited to go in the station. They were still building the station. But they had a building next door, like an office building next door where they were kind of running things from. And I got called, like asked to come in for the Friday afternoon team meet kind of thing. But I wasn't allowed to tell anyone there what I'd been hired to do either. And so people are like, some of the other people are like, so what's your role? And I'm like, and then they're like, and one guy's going, have you always wanted to work in radio? Like, is this? And I'm like, no. Well, where have you come from? Oh, I'm a chiropractor. I'm like, that is not giving us any idea at all what you're hired for. But doesn't every radio station have a company chiro?
It's so wild given you had no experience in that area.
And not even any great comedy experience, you know. So that
you're pretty fresh on the scene.
Very fresh.
And the turnaround time for you was pretty quick because on the 5th of December, 2002, Nova launched. So what did they have you doing in the lead up? Were you just doing a whole bunch of
We did
trial
3
shows?
weeks. So our start date was the 18th of November, and we basically did 3 weeks of shows as though we were doing it. So we got up early and we went in and we prepped and did everything. It's just that nobody heard it. Yeah. So just to get used to the way we worked with one another, the way we would run the show, I suppose, and like just testing out, you know, everything. Just testing out everything.
So what was it like? Paint us a picture, like the night before you're about to go live to air on the brekkie slot. Like, this is like, this is a big spot. Like, were you like extremely excited or like feeling extremely sick?
You would think, I didn't have a lot of time to think about it because Nova launched at 3:00 in the afternoon, right, with the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Tim Blackwell. He was our drive announcer at the time. And so that they launched on the Thursday. We didn't start until the Friday. Yeah. But there was a big launch party then that night. And so we went to the launch party and then had to go home at like, I don't know, 8:30 or something, the rock and roll time of 8:30 when things were just starting to really kick off. And so, because that was like, we're all having fun and you're meeting lots of new people and all this sort of, you know, industry people. I didn't know any. I wasn't in the industry. I didn't know any of these people. And so, there wasn't a lot of time to think about it, which is probably good. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then we only had to work that one day, so the Friday, and then
you had the weekend off.
Yeah, then we had the weekend off. So pretty much. It was like, what have I done? This is all like, and at that stage we were on air at 5:30. And we were getting into the station at 4. So my alarm, I lived in South Freo at the time, was going off at 2:55 in the morning. It's grim.
And like, how did the show go? Was it?
That is a bit of a blur. I can remember being slightly put off because they came to us at the last minute and said, we've got Red Hot Chili Pepper tickets for you to give away in your show. And we're like, no, we hadn't planned for that. You know that, but that, as it turns out, is a very normal thing to just slot things in here and there. But I was like thrown by just something spontaneously happening. Now the whole show happened spontaneously. But
I did a bit of radio with Triple J.
Yes.
And I still remember the first day before I went on air and I knew every single break what I was going to talk about. Yeah. And I was doing the mid-dawn. So it was 1 till 6 and there's so many breaks. Yes. But I had planned out my breaks. I had also downloaded all the songs I was going to be playing and made a Spotify playlist so that I could listen to them.
So you pre-listened to everything.
So I was so familiar.
Oh my God. That's next level.
It was next level, right? I would never do that kind of prep. You know when you're like overtime. Yes. Did you do that level of prep going into
I remember having a little book where I'd write things down in like just little things that I saw and when it's like, what do you want to talk about? You'd be flicking through my book. I'm going to talk about this. And then we would actually craft the break, like how it was going to start, how it was going to, you know, what you're going to talk through, how long it would go for, and then what would be the big kind of laugh out at the end of it.
So you really structured it.
Whereas we don't do that anymore.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, you guys are so off the
That
cuff.
went by the wayside very quickly.
Have you ever listened back?
No, and I do not wish to.
I want to hear it.
No, I have no desire. Just like I don't want to hear that first stand-up gig either. I just, I don't even like listening to stand-up, hearing myself back on doing anything.
Oh, no, same. Even from like a week ago, I'm like, oh gosh, really?
Yeah. I know there are lots of stand-up comedians who do like film everything and watch it back to see what worked and what didn't.
Oh, you don't do that?
I don't like, no, because it's excruciating.
Oh, it's so bad listening to yourself. You're into your 23rd year of radio,
Yes.
but if you could travel back in time and give like a young Nat who was just starting out, you know, in 2002, some advice, is there anything you'd whisper into her ear?
Well, I think that at the time I remember thinking that if I can do this for 2 years, it'll just be a great story to tell when I'm older. Like, you know, it's a pretty brutal industry. Like, that happens all the time. Like, new people come in, they last 2 years, they're gone. And so I thought, if I get 2 years out of this, this will be
pretty funny,
hilarious.
Great,
like, what a great story to tell in the old people's home.
Yeah,
exactly. And I didn't give up the chiro for 12 years. I think that if I was to go back, knowing what the outcome is at the end of it, I'd say give up the chiro much earlier, because I was so divided for so long. Like 12 years is a long time to be working in the morning and then going off and working in my clinic in the afternoon. Yeah. So and Saturday mornings as well.
No, you weren't. How did you not just burn out?
I think I probably did.
Multiple times.
And now I don't know how I
did that.
I have no idea how I did that, because that's like the exhaustion from just getting up at 4 a.m. every day is brutal. And so how I did that now, like I used to, my afternoon sessions used to start at 3 o'clock. Now sometimes still, and it's 10 years since I gave the chiro away, I would go back and I'd think 3 o'clock is it, I don't know how I would go to work now. Like I'm like lying on the couch,
actually crazy,
watching Tipping Point or something equally, you know.
Well, a year into the radio, your co-host got switched out and a new guy got switched in by the name of Nathan.
Never heard of him. No.
Who has gone on to become your like really good friend and co-host. You guys are into your 22nd year together.
I know, that's wild.
So wild. I mean, what were your first impressions of him?
Well, Nathan had been hanging around a little bit before that, so he did some street stuff for us because he was fresh out of Big Brother. So 2002 was his Big Brother year, and he ran a competition for us, and then he went over east and did that at our sister station in Cairns at the time. And so he kind of and he did some Big Brother reports for us as well for the next series. And so he was kind of in our orbit. But and so when it didn't surprise us when they came to us and said we're going to make this switch. It made sense. Like it was an obvious kind of solution. And the guy that he replaced, Damo, is an absolute sweetheart. And he lives in Ireland now, but he's a comedian and he's great. You know, he's a brilliant guy. But the breakfast radio was not for him. And he's actually, comedy-wise, he's very visual, and you go, I can see how that wouldn't have worked. And the lifestyle, he still wanted to do a lot of comedy. It's tough to do that when you're getting up at 4 a.m. every day. So it worked well. It was a good solution for everybody.
Yeah, and you guys, like I said, have managed to have this like beautiful relationship for like 22 years now. Obviously, Sean coming in and later in
the new guy, he's been with us for 16 years. The new guy.
I know, right? But it's like, and you've become like one of the country's like strongest teams. Like it's like, do you have any secrets to the longevity?
I mean, we're lucky in that we were afforded the time and grace to gel, and which doesn't always happen. Like it can be a brutal industry, and we didn't. Our ratings took a bit of a quantum leap when. So Nathan and I were with a third guy, the guy that had been with us from the start, the anchor guy, and then they made his position redundant, and it was just Nathan and Nat. When that happened, we had a bit of a quantum shift in the ratings, and before that, we were just kind of languishing, I suppose. Like we hadn't really hit our stride, and it would have been tempting, I think, to just get rid of all of us and start afresh. But we were lucky that we had people that believed in us and actually did let us really bed in and really find our feet, because we were.
Because the three of you almost don't have a media background, do you?
None of us do.
None of you do.
I do feel bad because every year we get asked to go and speak to the broadcasting postgrad students at WAPA, and it's like, oh yeah, none of us have any qualifications.
Yeah, so what, out of interest, what would you say if someone was starting out in the media industry? What do you say to them in terms of that advice?
It's tough because it's also a contracting industry. You know, there's like a lot of the regional stations now, there's no breakfast shows in the regional stations and all that sort of stuff. Like a lot of it's being networked, and like, so where there were a lot of people, there's now smaller and smaller and smaller amounts. But if it's something that you truly want to do, then you've just got to go for it. And I think that the people that we've seen succeed coming up underneath us and around us have been people that have put their hand up and said, whenever there's something to be done, I'll do that. I'll give that a go. I'll train how to panel. I'll train how to do this. Can I learn this, on their own time? They're the ones that roll into bigger careers because they have been available and filled a hole when they needed it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like you're saying, Nathan was almost just lingering around.
Yeah, that's right.
Doing all the other stuff before.
Yeah, part of that, and the longevity, part of it is just turning up. Like it is just, maintaining, rewarding the company's faith in you, just being, I don't know, easy to work with and not objecting to too many things and just getting on with it.
Yeah, no, well, honestly, it's so impressive. I think 23 years in any job is amazing, but 23 years, like you're saying, in our industry, the media industry, it's so cutthroat, it's fast-paced, you never know what is going on, is so impressive. And not only that, you are also doing stand-up and you're writing the inside cover for the Sunday Times magazine. I mean, I'm such a fan, Nat. Like, it's so cool. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Did you ever, like you said, you had no idea it would go on this long?
Perth is a market that likes the familiarity. We see Susanna Carr and Rick Arden on the news. They're the longest standing newsreader duo in the world.
Oh,
in the world.
Oh, wow.
So we like stability. And so that's been part of the thing for us is that, we have been a very stable and all of the other stations around us have sort of chopped and changed over the years for various reasons. Sometimes it's people are moving on to better things. Sometimes, they're ditching them and starting afresh, or they're moving one person out and somebody else in, that sort of thing. So to be the constant when everything else is changing around you that's a real luxury for us and a real advantage.
Yeah. What have been some of the highlights over the years then, Nova?
Oh, well, I think last year getting invited to go to the lodge and have dinner with Albo. That literally just came about because we made a joke about it. Like Nathan said, what's the lodge like? And he was, talked about it. And then Nathan interrupted him and said, well, we wouldn't know, you've never invited us. And he said, oh, you can come.
Have you used that exact strategy on other guests now?
Yeah, that's right, I figure, right? Chris Hemsworth, can we come to Byron Bay?
What's it like, Chris? What's the beach like?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a good strategy because if you do it enough, it pays off. Yeah. So we did get to go to the lodge.
What was it like?
It's amazing. So
what did he serve you guys?
Great question. So we had, it was a busy day actually because Parliament was sitting. So he'd been at Parliament all day and he had to be there the next day as well. So he'd really carved out we had I think it was 2 hours. And so we got there and so there was just the three of us and our producer and our digital content producer, so 5 of us. And it was Albo and Jodie and one of his advisors who we had known because she used to work for Mike McGowan. So we knew her. And then we got there and we just had a drink and the house manager was sort of fluttering around and taking our coats and everything. And then we had an official photo at the steps with Albo and Jodie and Toto. And then he went and got changed. So he was wearing a suit, but then he just went and got changed, which is pretty cute. And he showed us around the house, all the bits. We went into his office and we gave him a gift, which was a picture of us together, framed. And he put it on the mantelpiece and it's still there. So on the mantelpiece, in the lodge, the Prime Minister's residence, is a picture of Anthony Albanese and Jodie and our son Nathan. So that's one picture. There's a picture of the King.
Okay, yeah.
And there's a picture of us. And so world leaders come in because it's one of the reception rooms. So if they're entertaining, it's the kind of main kind of lounge area, and people, you can see people. He said people go up and look at the mantelpiece and they're like,
oh, there's the King and
there's you guys.
Those guys.
Who's that? Yeah, and he's like, it's a radio station from Perth. It's like, Wait, what?
That is so crazy.
I know.
Did I read somewhere as well that you met the Queen? Or is that a lie?
Oh, we got invited to the Queen's garden party when she was
okay.
here. So we got close to the Queen, but we didn't actually meet her.
you got invited to a garden
Oh,
party?
yeah, we were. Well, Nathan and I did. Sean didn't, which is even funnier. And when we asked why Sean wasn't invited, at the time, Dixie Marshall was the advisor to the press secretary to the Premier, and her response was, "Isn't it obvious?" We're like, no. But the next time, then Prince Charles came, and he had a barbecue thing where that was more geared towards family. So Sean and his family did get invited to that, and we didn't get invited. So it's like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
but the Queen's better.
I was going to invite the other two along to the podcast, but I was like, no.
Oh, they're waiting in the car.
You guys wait outside. I'd be curious for, like, you've also come, like, not from that media background.
No.
Do you ever get, like, an imposter syndrome?
Oh, God, for about the first 20 years.
Because how does it go when, say, because I know last year your good friend Joel Creasy asked you to open for his comedy special. I mean, do you ever go, no?
Yeah, well, when I said yes to that, I'd had 3/4 of a bottle of wine. We were at, we were thrown to, fate did this because we were in Adelaide separately. So I was in Adelaide. I'd been sent over by the company that was bringing Mary Poppins the musical here, and they said, go over there and see it, and then when we bring it here, you can talk about it. I'm like, brilliant. And when I get there, I'm sitting next to Joel and Reese Nicholson and Susie Youssef, who were there for Reese's bucks too, which is pretty funny, because for his bucks, they went to see Mary Poppins the musical. So they'd come from Melbourne, and we were just chatting. I'd had 3/4 of a bottle of wine, and he's just said, oh, when I do my show in Perth, do you want to open for me? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then for about the next 2 months, whenever I spoke to him, I said, it's fine. Yeah. I understand if you don't want me to do it. Like, don't feel bad about saying I've changed my mind because it's fine. And he went, no, I really want to do it. I'm like, no, I don't think you understand. I haven't done it for a long time. So if you do change your mind and think, why did I do that? Why would I do that? It's fine. Yeah. I will not. We're still friends. It's fine. No, I really want to do it. I want to.
How did that go then?
Really good, like surprisingly good. And so he said, just go and do some open mic nights and work out some material. Yeah, I didn't do that. So I just winged it. Wow. So I wrote some stuff, but I didn't even that stuff because he said, I said, how long do you want me to do? Thinking you'd say 10 minutes. And he said, 20. 20 is a lot. 20 is a lot.
Much.
Like raw comedy, it's 5. So to go to doing 20 minutes, that's a headline set. That's a headline set at any other comedy club.
That's a lot.
I know. It was a lot of all new material because I'd never done it before. So and even on the day, I remember I wrote it all out and that was a very nervous day because I was just pacing around because I was worried I wouldn't remember it more than anything. And so I just was going through bits and I'd change a line and then I'd go back and I didn't actually time it and go from one end of it from the beginning to the end, do it all in one hit until I was in the car driving to the gig.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I had all the elements in place, but I hadn't actually done the whole thing from woe to go until I was driving there.
I was listening to this.
I don't recommend that, by the way. That's a terrible idea.
I just feel like it's the worst possible idea. But I often get bored of what I'm writing sometimes, so I can't even stand listening to the whole thing back.
Yeah. And that when you're writing comedy, you can write something because I write for the Sunday Times as well. And there's that's often quite whimsical and funny. That's different to stand up because it needs to be able to be said out loud, it can really change because I can hear things in my head and go, oh yeah, it's funny, I kind of like that, but it doesn't translate when you actually say it.
Does the radio skills translate across to stand-up comedy?
No, not really, because that's a 3-minute thing, and then you go to a Dua Lipa song. So
you should have done that. You should have said something and then gone to a
big
song.
laugh, Dua Lipa. All right, I'm back.
Joel Creasy. I was listening to Jamie Foxx's interview, and he was sort of saying, as a stand-up comedian, it's actually harder when you've made it because when you're just this person who's coming up through the ranks, no one kind of expects you to make them laugh.
Yes.
But then when you've made it, all of a sudden people are like, oh yeah, she's going to make us laugh. Did you find when you were opening for Joel a different kind of pressure because you were like Nat Locke from radio, from Nova versus in 2002, raw comedy, no one knew? who you were?
I think, well, I found Joel's audience very actually lovely. So they were, and I think it's a different, like I didn't feel that there was as much pressure on me in that because I'm not, it's low stakes. They're not there to see me. Yeah. So I'm kind of like the bonus add-on. So I didn't feel that much pressure. I was kind of just like, I just hope I can get through it and that everybody doesn't hate it, you know, and which, you know, it went better than that. So that was good. It's funny because I think there's also the flip side to that, which is that if you have made it in comedy, you can say things that aren't as funny.
And people just laugh?
Yeah. There's a bit in, have you ever watched Hacks? Which is a great show about a comedian who, like, she was in residency in Vegas and that kind of thing. And she has a breakout season. And then there's a scene where she's in a small comedy club just trying out some new material. And everybody's just laughing at every little thing that she's doing. And she's like, no, I haven't made the joke yet. Like, so because they know you, they already know you're funny.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I see that when I watch a lot of comedy specials.
Yes.
And I'm like removed from actually being there in the audience and I'm not finding anything funny. And
everyone's
laughing. I'm like,
laughing their heads off. Yeah.
Must be because, like what you said,
the
they
expectation is there.
And they love you as a person that they'll just laugh.
Yeah. It's sort of like they're loving you for your body of work almost. Yeah.
Do you have like one thing I've always admired from stand-up comedians is the way that you guys sort of warm the crowd. Do you have any is there any like sort of hacks
I don't
to get
think
the
that's
crowd
like when
on
you
board?
see a really good MC at a comedy gig do that, it is amazing. I don't do any crowd work, but it's something I would love to do because when you see it done well, it's
so good.
Mind-blowingly good. You know, comedians like Matt Rife are probably the best, at least an American guy. He's the best at that stuff, like just the being able to having the license to do it, but the people expect it of him as well. So they're up for it because he basically abuses them at the same time, but in a funny way. And everybody's just like, that's so funny. It's like, he just said some terrible things about you. Being able to do that. And when you see comedians that are good at it, it's amazing.
Oh yeah. So amazing. I thought it'd be kind of cool to get what a day in a life of your life looks like now, because you sort of are in this unique situation where you start and end your work day before anyone else's. I know. Yeah, so how does it, like, are you still getting up at, you're not getting up at 2 anymore?
No, I get up at 4. The first alarm goes off at 4 and I kind of, depending on the day, I don't snooze. I don't snooze my alarms, but there's a series of them and it's which one I get up on. So, but sometime, it's usually around 4:15, and then into the office by about 5, coffee. First stop, literally walk in straight to the kitchen, make a coffee. And then for the next hour, we are just checking out news websites, chit-chatting, just sort of, you know, getting the vibe going. And then at about Sean is off writing the sports news. And then at about 5:45, he comes in. And so then we throw around what topics we might talk about. Like most of the time we don't get a lot of time for phoners and things anymore, but like today we had room for 2, so we're like, okay, so what are we going to talk about? And it's like, is there anything, what's in the news, what's happening in our lives?
Wow, so you just almost like in 15 minutes you quickly just fire all that off. That is so fast. I imagine would some teams have like a ton of producers doing all that? Yeah,
like we have 2 producers, but the content comes from us. They're there to, like, they might, if we genuinely couldn't decide between 2, they would make the call on that, or they'll make their call on when it's placed. So we'll do that topic in 6 or that topic at 8:30, that kind of thing. But and they're putting together, because they know when the interviews are scheduled for and all that, and when the competitions have to slot in and all that kind of thing. But yeah, the actual content for us is generated by us, yeah.
And so then you go do the show.
Yep.
And then are you allowed to leave straight after?
No, there's normally some meetings and stuff. So we normally get off air at about 9:15, and then we'll have a meeting after that, which is just... We love meetings.
Meetings are best.
So it'll be talking about upcoming promotions and competitions and things. And Amy, our producer, will run us through a list of interview possibilities. Do you want to talk to these guys? This has been offered to you. You know, like the TV networks offer you interviews and stuff. Most of the time, we're like, no.
Elbow, yes.
Yeah. And so things like that. And then just general, I don't know if there's general business going on. And so often we're out of there by 10:30, something like that. Sometimes we'll have an interview to record afterwards, like a pre-recorded interview. We've got a voice and stuff. At the moment we do, like, on Thursdays we record Reheated, which goes to air on Saturday mornings. So that happens after the show. And there's like podcast tops and things like that we have to do. Like the Reheated podcasts and things like that. So it's a bit of stuff, recording voiceover ads and things.
And then what do you do for your rest of your day? Do you spend that sleeping?
Mostly. I go home immediately and take the dog for a walk. And then it's like whatever, like, you've just general life, so appointments and getting your hair done and like a pedicure, all of that sort of stuff, just roll it in. I will normally try and get a nap in the afternoon because otherwise, I don't get enough sleep because I don't go to bed early enough. I have a terrible sleep routine. So I will generally have a bit of a nap where I just lie on the couch and out for an hour or so. Yeah. And then somebody told me once that you shouldn't nap in bed. You shouldn't nap where you sleep because then you teach yourself to wake up after a short period of time. So so I nap on the couch.
Oh, okay, that's your excuse.
Yeah, that's right. It's like, it's just sleepy time now. And then take the dog for a walk again, and dinner, watched some TV, or sometimes like if we're interviewing somebody from a show, we've got to watch that show, or they'll send through screeners of the movie or whatever. So you've got to bang them out at some stage. Check the news websites and
you've got it down to a fine art.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I should go to bed earlier than I do. Like that is my mistake.
What's your current sleep time?
9:45.
It's too late.
It is too late. I know. It's a terrible idea. I've done a really bad job of it.
Well, I thought it'd be kind of cool to round out the show with some life advice from Nat.
Okay. Right. Well, do as I say, not as I do.
I thought it'd be cool to start with communication. You're obviously a master communicator. Have you got any tips for anyone if they've got to do like a speech at work or a wedding?
Okay, do you know what's funny? As a kid, I was shy.
Same.
Yeah, it's so bizarre.
I was so shy that my friends think it's so messed up that I do public speaking now.
Same.
I was petrified.
Yeah, it's quite amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
What happened to us?
I don't know. I think it's like, I don't know about it for me. I wonder if it's similar for you. When I got the job as a TV host at ABC, like I said, my parents, everyone were a bit shocked by this. Yes. They actually thought it was a mistake. But because I had to move to Melbourne and there was a whole different group of people around me and they thought I was like this loud rapper from Perth, I stepped into that identity.
Yeah, sort of like you reinvent yourself.
I was like, okay, yeah. And so I sort of just went with what everyone else thought I was. But inside I was like, I'm so quiet. Yeah. What was it for you?
Random. I think like, because when I moved to Melbourne to go to uni as well, like you're moving to a place where nobody knows
so
you.
They can't hold you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So you don't have anything to live up to or anything to deny. So it was I guess it was similar in that you could just, although I was still a bit shy around new people, so it took a while to warm up, and it took somebody else on the first day actually just turning around, introducing herself to me and going, because we're all in the same situation really, but I looked around and everybody seemed to be talking to one another. I'm like, how do they know one another? She just turned around and said, my name's Paulette, and we became really firm friends straight away because of that. And sometimes that's all it takes. It's just like somebody reaching out to you, and that changed everything. But I think as far as giving speeches and stuff, the trick, I think, is to be prepared. Is to if you know what you're going to say, even if it's not written down, but if you have talked it through, that's a big step, like being familiar with what you're actually saying. And if you're, so preparation, I think, is probably the key to success. Yeah. But and you know how they say, imagine everyone naked. That's a terrible idea, because then you're just preoccupied with thinking, what do you look like naked? That's a terrible idea.
My brother when I started to do a lot of emceeing when I came back to Perth, he gave me advice that I think is better than picture everyone naked. He said to me, imagine everyone's having a terrible day and you've got to cheer them up.
Oh, that's nice. And that's a good one.
I tell myself that every time before I go on stage.
Yes.
I'm always like, shout out to my brother Jamie, but I'm always like, because then it flicks the attention off myself.
That's right.
And then it flicks it onto got to cheer these people
I'm
up.
here to, yeah.
And so then I kind of go out with that way.
And I think the other thing is that everybody in the audience wants you to do well. Yeah. Like nobody wants you to suck.
No.
So they're very encouraging. Like it's, that some might be ambivalent. They might not want to be there. But most of the people already think you're going to do a good job because you're there doing it. You know, they're sitting there watching you. So they
don't know all the voices that are in your head.
That's right. They have some faith that you know what you're doing. Yeah.
Second tips I thought could be around energy, because I don't know how you do what you do. I MC one event and then I don't want to talk to anyone on my car ride home and generally the next day, but you do your job, which is such high energy, back to back, 5 days a week. Then you also do all these other things and the stand up. Like, where do you get your energy from?
Yeah, I don't actually know the answer to that. And I'm not a natural morning person either, so it is a challenge. So when I'm on holidays, I do not wake up at 4 a.m. Even on the weekends, I immediately just switch back to normal. That's weird. I know. It is.
After 23 years.
Yeah, still, I know. It's freaky. And on the holidays, if somebody says, oh, can you drop the car off by 7 a.m.? I'm like, no, that's way too early. And like, don't you get up early every day? It's like, yes, but I can't do it when I'm on holidays. Wow. So yeah, it's only to catch a plane. That's the only reason I can do it on holidays. So it is weird in that sense. So yeah, and I think the other secret is caffeine.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say caffeine. What do you do on days? Like I imagine you have had days where you've had to rock up to work early and you have no energy, and your job is so hard because you've got to be everyone else's pick me up. Like what do you do?
I know, it's amazing. Because I think you just throw everything at it. So even if it's when you're feeling sick is probably, just that general under the weather kind of, you can feel something's coming on and your energy's low. But when the mic goes on, you do just turn it on. Yeah. But after that, you fall in a heap. So it's like you just throw all of your energy at that 3-hour window. And then you're just a husk of a person on the way home. Then you lie on the couch for the rest of the day to recharge.
Honestly sounds so familiar.
Yeah. You know that you've got to be up, so you just do it. It is actually incredible what you're capable of doing if you just push yourself to do it. So that energy is within you. It's just a matter of switching it on, and then it switches off when you're done.
And imagine it's like helpful as well. You've got those people around.
Yes, we're bouncing off other people. So rarely are all three of us low at the same time. Like it just doesn't happen. So there's that benefit that you are, if you're down, the other two are up and vice versa. So yeah.
What do you have any tips for, like I was saying before, you do radio, you write inside cover for Sunday Times, you do stand up, you walk your dog, like productivity wise, do you have any secrets to getting things done?
No, I'm a terrible procrastinator. So every time I have to write my STM column, I literally leave it to the very last minute. Oh, okay. I'm quite deadline driven.
See, I had you on this pedestal and I was like, I see what she's doing here because I read them. I was like, I bet you she's banked about 15 of these. So that I thought you were super organised. I had you pictures so organised and that you'd written them all ahead of time. No, so you literally... So
it goes to print on a Wednesday and on Tuesday nights often, in fact, last night, so we're taping this on a Wednesday. Last night, I was walking the dog after dinner and it was 8:10. Wow. And I went, I've removed my column. So I went home, typed frantically and then, knocked it out and sent it off. So, and then sometimes even I'm at that point, it's 8:10 on a Tuesday night and I'm like going, what am I going to write about? I don't know what I'm going to write about.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I have not banked 15 or any.
Literally, I was like, I know how she's doing it. She's done them all in advance.
No, you're not. And in fact, they did ask me at one stage, one of the editors said, would you mind banking a couple in advance? And I pushed back and said no, because what if there's something current that I want to write about? Yeah. I never write about anything current.
That would actually just mean you have to be more organised. You didn't want to do that.
No, that's right. It just goes against everything I believe in.
Do you have any tips or like routines around your mindfulness or mindfulness practice, or do you just wing that?
Wing it. Yeah, wing it. Like it is. And I greatly admire people that do have practice around that sort of stuff, but I don't.
I like that. It's simple. It's simple.
Yeah.
It's almost uncomplicating it as well.
Yes,
I guess sometimes you can get caught up in like writing in your 7 different journals and meditating and giving an intention to your water.
Yes.
But
the one thing I do is I have one of those little books that is like that goes for 5 years, where you write down just a couple of sentences about each day.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
So as you go through it, you do it for 5 years so you can look back on what you did on that day 5 years ago. So that's kind of cute. So I do that. Okay, so that's it. Like just before I go to sleep, I write 3. It's like maybe 6 lines about what happened today. So I'll just write who we interviewed, or what I did, or what bone I've broken today, that kind of thing. bit of a habit. And then, and so that's kind of just a bit of a fun way to look back on, you know, what's happened over the last 5 years.
Well, everyone, that was life advice by Nat Locke.
Deep, it was deep, wasn't it?
Yeah, take with it from what you will.
Oh, so much wisdom.
Yeah, Nat, like I said, I'm honestly such a big fan. And I think one of the things I love most about you is the way you just give things a crack. I mean,
yes. That is my life advice, actually.
Yeah, I think
it's
it is just
to jump in.
Give it a crack. That would be your life.
Yeah, in every sense.
Like you, 25 years old, just opportunity comes up to buy business, you went for it and you hadn't really thought much about it before. Raw comedy in 2002, you'd done no comedy whatsoever, made it through to the finals. And then Nova needs, you know, their main breakfast host. Yeah. You're like, all right, guys, I think I can help it. And you have no experience in these areas and you're so far out of your comfort zone, which is so cool.
And the thing is, you will feel like an imposter when you do that. But it is the classic fake it till you make it, right? It is like, well, okay, if I just give it a go. If it doesn't work out, I had a safety net. I had something else to do. But if it does work out, how amazing. How amazing. What a great story to tell.
I was going to say, what has been like your biggest lesson from pushing yourself so far out of your comfort zone all the time?
Yeah, I think it definitely is that like just say yes to opportunity. Like, because the opportunities arise all the time, but you might not be tuned in to that's what's happening, you know, and it doesn't have to be a massive opportunity like a breakfast radio gig. That sort of thing doesn't happen very often. But if it is just something, even something small like that, but we asked to do something that you've never done before, just try it, because there's nothing to lose. Like there's literally nothing to lose. And you might find that you've got an amazing aptitude for it, that you love it. You know, there's all sorts of reaction, or you know that, or you find out that you hate it, and then you know, well, I don't have to do that again. You know, that sort of thing.
Do you have any fear at all around failure with any of that kind of stuff? Like, what's your relationship with?
I don't know. I haven't really thought. I don't really think about that side of it, I guess, and maybe that's part of the advantage, is that you're more prepared to give things a crack if you don't focus on the failure side of it. Yeah. I mean, you don't feel like you're a part of it necessarily. So, you know, I definitely did suffer from imposter syndrome. But at the same time, I looked around and thought, well, there's experienced people that are given, they know what they're doing.
I think that with my thing, whenever I'm like, I can't do, I'm like, I don't know if you should be the one doing this. I'm like, well, they've hired.
Yeah, that's right. They know what they're doing. If you think they know what they're doing,
I'm sure
then
they think I can do it.
Yeah, that's right. So if somebody else has that faith in you, then
you should have it in yourself.
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
right. That's right. There's a fair chance they know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Well, now, honestly, it's been so exciting to like talk to you, but also listen to you in the car radio and wherever I've been for the last 23 years. Like, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for being this like ball of energy in everyone's morning.
I'm going home to have a nap now. Yeah, I'll be in a coma in about half an hour.
I'm so sorry. For someone who's achieved so much, like, what is success to you?
I think just loving what you do. I mean, it's a bonus if you can be paid well for it. Like that's amazing. But just being a part of people's lives and having like people like you say, oh, you know, I've been listening to you since I was this tiny. Or my favourite story is I met a lady in a cafe once. She was running a cafe and she was from South Africa and they had moved over here, and the visa they got meant they had to buy a business, right? So it's like an investment visa. And she said they were driving around. They knew no one in Perth, not one single person. They were driving around looking at businesses. They hadn't even become a part of a community. They didn't have a rental yet. They were in short stay accommodation because they didn't know where they were going to be living until they bought the business, right? And the kids weren't enrolled in school yet. And she said that every day they would drive around, and she said the only constant in their lives at that time was us on the radio. And she said, we would say, what are our friends doing today? Because they were, to us, we were the only familiar voices. And you go, it's so beautiful that we can be a part of people's lives in that way. Yeah. Like that, what a privilege. Like, it's just so, it's so beautiful.
It's honestly, well, like you do such an amazing job of it. And you're, like I said, a ray of sunshine in the morning. So congratulations.
Me and coffee.
Yes, that is the secret. Coffee, guys.
It is. Yeah.
Obviously, people can catch you on Nova in the mornings with Nathan and Sean.
Yes.
And social media, you're at Nat Locke.
Yeah, Natty _ Nat, which is the worst handle ever.
Oh, yeah, that's the worst. You need to do something about that. And obviously you can read the inside cover of Sunday Times magazine that she's written at haste.
Yes, I literally you can hear the panic in the typing.
Nat, thank you so much. Just lastly, I always say life is a jungle. Do you have any parting wisdom for listeners on how to navigate the jungle of life?
Oh, like it's have a crack. Have a crack. That's literally my takeaway is have a crack.
No, look, thank you so much.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. To find out more, you can follow me on socials at Amberly Lobo or visit my website, amberlylobo.com. Have a great day. And remember, life is a jungle. Be kind to animals. Bye.
Welcome to the jungle with Amberly Lobo.